Tess, it's a real pleasure to have you joining us today. I've been following your writing for quite a while, and it's one of the clearest thinking on where biotech, capital, and China actually meet. So thank you for joining us today and share some of your perspectives with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, great. So I would actually start out by letting you introduce yourself to our audience. Maybe quickly share a little bit about your background and your path to RA Capital.
Absolutely. So I have been, I'm a managing director at RA Capital, and I've been at RA for about 6 years. And I spent most of my career actually working in biotech companies. RA is a multi-stage fund. We're one of the largest dedicated life sciences funds with around 15 billion of assets under management. And we really play in all spaces of company building, through to investing in companies on the public market.
Now let's talk a little bit about global innovation. Now let's zoom out before we zoom in. So globally, true innovation is actually rare. So if we think about all of the pipeline, there's still quite a lot that is another iteration, me too or me better products of a target that's already validated. So with that lens, do you think the innovation coming out of China actually starts to look like genuine first-in-class assets, or it's still mainly the fast follower assets? What do you think?
When we talk about innovation, there's sometimes this debate about what is really innovative versus what is incremental and what matters. And from our perspective as investors, what matters is something that is meaningful to patients. And sometimes something that is seen as maybe incremental from a scientific standpoint, that might actually matter a lot to patients, right? So a drug that is intravenous, becoming something that is subcutaneous. That might mean that a patient who used to have to take a day off work to go and get an infusion, that they can now actually do that from home with a subcutaneous injection. Maybe that means that they are more compliant with their medication. Maybe that means that, there's patients who actually, may have, had trouble at work because of days that they had to miss. That actually really matters to patients. So I think our view, is that we really have to get away from this, what is, true innovation versus what is incremental innovation, and really focus on what matters to patients. And there are definitely kind of improvements to existing, known targets where that is a meaningful difference to patients, and that's really what matters, and that is where we focus our investments. So rather than talk about what is first in class, or we really focus on a concept that we call unconscionable to deny.
So one thing we know that China does actually pretty well is the ability to run clinical trials in a relatively fast and cost-effective fashion. So this also helps the iterations to enhance these incremental improvements before that true quality jump. So we know that RA has built the Swift Bridge around the idea of putting Chinese clinical capabilities into the hands of your early stage companies. Tell us a little bit more about this program and where you see the value.
Absolutely. So we are just incredibly impressed with the clinical trial ecosystem in China, both the speed, but also the quality. The clinicians who we meet in China just really, really impress us. We recognize that, clinical development is ultimately, such an important value driver for our portfolio. This motivated us several years ago to actually build what we call our Blackbird team in the US, right? Because there's a lot of ways in biotech that you can lose money, right? There's the science, right? Which that happens, right? And that's something that we cannot really control. But, we love for things that, we can really help our portfolio companies, control and manage, clinical trial timelines. But that's something that we really like to, give our portfolio companies as many tools as possible for managing that and really being able to drive to the critical data that they need to be successful successful. We started with our US team several years ago and, really put together a strong team. This is both clinical development, but also patient engagement, CMC, regulatory. And so they work closely with our portfolio companies globally. As we started learning more about the China clinical ecosystem, we thought, this is really something that we want our portfolio companies to be able to do. If you think about it, being able to really incorporate China into clinical trials, that's something that a lot of MNCs have built the capability to do, but that's pretty daunting for like a little US biotech, right? Because it's so many levels, removed from what they are used to and what they might be familiar with. And so, SwiftBridge was really, the idea behind that was we want to make this something that's more accessible and more understandable for our portfolio companies, so they have that tool available to them if it's appropriate for their development plan.
Great. So that brings another question, because a lot of the times people ask about the data quality and the data transferability. What's your view on the data that's generated in the clinical trial and operations environment in China, and how does the regulatory bodies around the world, not just US, but EMA as well, and Japan and the other countries, should interpret that kind of data?
First, I think a lot of our experience and our portfolio company experience has been with, really top sites in China that have a lot of experience with, clinical trials, GCP compliant, many of them, FDA audited, many sites that have been GCP inspected, in China by the FDA, by the NMPA. So I think we, really feel, good about a lot of the data that's being generated by those sites where we know the parties that are involved. We've had many cases where we've really, been able to, gain a lot of conviction in the data that's being generated in China, in order to underwrite a global development plan that includes, a lot of patients outside of China as well.
Great. So now let me put the harder question on the table. And I think there has been a lot of discussions around it recently that if the multinational companies are actually able to license fast, cheaper, and already validated assets out of China, will they stop funding the riskier, earlier innovation at home in the United States? And over time, will that actually hollow out the biotech industry in the US? I'd like to hear your perspective on this.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that it's important to kind of look at the data in context. If we look at 2025 licensing deals, from China biotech, there's a commonly kind of cited number around, 130 billion or so of licensing deals. But then think about how much of that is upfront, right? It's actually under 6 billion. And contrast that with the amount of M&A, right, that happened, that was primarily, US biotechs that was over 100 billion, I want to say in 2025. It's really important to look at those numbers in context and think about, the continued importance of US biotech, even while China has obviously grown as a really important source of licensing deals and really important source of global innovation. Our perspective is that there's actually a lot of, benefit to in having this, robust global innovation ecosystem. We do not see a hollowing out of, US companies. Indeed, over 95% of our assets under management are in US biotechs, right? Like, we continue to make a lot of investments in US biotechs because we see a lot of, phenomenal work, that they're doing. And that includes early stage companies, right? That is really not exclusively, tilted towards later stage companies. So we see US companies really continuing to take risk and, continuing to be really innovative in terms of the type of work that they're doing, is we don't see as much of like US base fast followers, right? Because maybe that's gotten harder, right? That's probably gotten, harder to kind of take a known compound, modify it and then come out with something better because, that's something that a lot of China biotechs can do very efficiently. And so what do we see? We see a lot of, US biotech companies having to kind of, reach further on the risk curve, value curve in terms of where they can find that product market fit. By the way, we also see more China biotechs doing that as well. I think it's become more clear to China biotechs that hey, it actually does become really hard if you are the 4th in class or 5th in class and not particularly differentiated. It's probably going to be difficult to generate a lot of value with that, with that compound. I think it's great, certainly, for the US biotech ecosystem to think about ways to maintain US competitiveness and enhance, US competitiveness in clinical trials and US competitiveness in discovery to really, further enable that.
Yeah.
But we absolutely do not see a hollowing out. We, continue to see a really robust innovation ecosystem, both in the US and also in China.
That's amazing. All right, thank you so much, Tess, for sharing your very great insights with our audience. So before we wrap up, are there any kind of additional thoughts you'd like to share with our audience, and maybe even the outlook and vision for RA?
Yes, absolutely. We're really inspired by, all the innovation and, the efficiency and the entrepreneurship that we see in China biotech. We see a lot of opportunity there, including for collaboration. Our real hope is that we can maintain that collaboration and, really the US ecosystem can really continue to partner with China in bringing forward those medicines, and that we can have a system of real mutual benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, really appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.